Welcome to Karate Cafe, your source for martial arts conversations since 2005. And now, here's your hosts, Paul Wilson and Dan Williams.
Hello, Internet. How are you this afternoon, evening, or good morning? Whichever it is for you, this is another episode of Karate Cafe, and I'm here with my good friend, Paul. How are you, Paul?
I'm fantastic, Dan.
That's excellent.
You know,
I'm fantastic, too.
it's so good to be back here in the massive Karate Cafe studio. Back in the green room. We got all the tables dusted off. We got all the computers cleaned up. As you can hear, my audio is so much better because I found my mic somewhere back in the vault. I think it was underneath a couple of podcasts, and I couldn't see them. So because there's so much weight and depth to our podcast, you can't even see the equipment that you have.
I think the world is starting to come out of COVID. It's very strange. I went grocery shopping today, and I'm all vaccinated up. And in Michigan, at least, if you've been fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. And I usually do just because, social and stuff like that.
Did they give you like a little card to flip, like, I'm vaxxed?
No. But I didn't today. Just because I thought, okay, it's been such a long time since I've been in the grocery store without a mask. This is going to be weird. And it wasn't. It was like a familiar old friend. Yeah. So I think the world is slowly grinding its way back to normal, which is awesome.
Yeah, we ate. Well, actually, I went back. I was back in Austin last week, and we did our online classes and whatnot. But we met in the park for one class, and it was me and three of my students that were fully vaccinated. So we all got together, got to be without masks, got to see each other.
Wow.
We still had some distancing going on. It was still a little tentative, but we had hand sanitizer and whatnot. And but it was great to get together and see them, see their face, see them in actual size. And we did tuity because we were like, okay, we've done karate basics to death. We've done pretty much all the kata we could do. I said, we can actually touch each other. We were all in agreement. It's like we can actually with consent touch each other. So let's do tuity, and we did, and it was great. And we met again a week or so later in the park and did kabuto because one of my junior students has got to learn the staff now. So the bow, not the bow staff.
It's the bow staff. He's learning his bow staff skills.
Nunchuck skills, bow staff skills. Anyway, so it was good because that way you could see stuff in 3D and whatnot and do it. And it was great. I got to admit, it was great. We gave him a hug. First time I really hugged anybody other than my family in a year.
I know, right?
And
so weird.
So that was great. Getting I don't think we're all out of the tunnel yet. I mean, this is not the political or socio.
No, but
whatever.
The light is definitely getting brighter and brighter.
And it does not seem to be a train, which is at least in the States. For those of our listeners who are outside the rest of the world, I still empathize with you. Anybody in India,
India is
rough
just,
gig.
My
some friends out in Australia were saying that they are kind of doing another little lockdown.
Really?
Of a sort, yeah. That was like a week or so ago, so they may be out of it now.
I have some friends in India, and they just say it's just wiping out families, one family at a time, just like a wave, just sweeping through the country. It's scary.
So any of your martial artists that are out there listening to us in the world, wash your damn hands and stay socially distant. So like I say, we even when we trained, we still stayed kind of distant, and we touched, other than that first time, but we're all fully vaccinated. So I hope that all, we can get back to, there are many schools I know that they're training, they're doing social distancing and stuff still. For us, it's still just not worth it. But anywho.
So I'm excited about the world getting back to a little bit of normalcy.
And also, I got to admit, for those of you who actually care, it feels really good to be, back in the Massive Karate Cafe studio, putting this stuff out. Talking with you.
Yeah, exactly. Having a little bit more of a
talking with people like Angel Lemus, who we talked to a couple weeks ago. Trying to get some more interviews set up with people. Still Looking at you, Cobra Kai. Still
That's
trying to
right.
get some interviews with various and sundry people. I've got some pretty good response, and I think we've got some interesting ones coming up as soon as we can firm up some dates.
If anybody
June,
knows Robert Downey Jr.,
and if anybody
that's the
knows
guy I want to
Robert
talk to.
Downey Jr., let's make that happen.
Man crush on him.
Well, Wing Chunny. Yeah. So anyway, as ever, if anyone knows anyone we need to be talking to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, please, by all means, let us know. And also, you guys can also help us with our new, what we call this, a series within a series.
A series within it. I like the series within a
topic
series.
theme. I don't know.
A thread, a strand.
Yeah, a strand. Haven't come up with a name with her yet. Maybe like mushing Marshall Maxims. I don't know.
Mushing Marshall Maxims. I do like that though. It's
We're
very
gonna
alliterative.
well, see, that's what I try to do. The although I did here in the well, not here in the dojo, but when I'm camping and it's raining like it was the other day, I have the camper karate class, KKK, and no one seems to like that. I don't.
That's not you. No, that's not good.
No. Okay. Well, anyway, it's alliterative. It works.
You could do CCC.
No.
No. Yeah.
And they'll just think that with the
now that I think about
Civilian
it,
Conservation Corps or something like that.
Why should Karate Cafe be spelled with 2 Ks? I don't know.
That was. I didn't do an actual spit take because then I had to clean it up here in the massive Karate Cafe studio. The that would be like a whole this whole time we've. And by the way, just so all you guys know, Dan and I were talking about it clearly. Well, to be fair, I didn't start this. Someone out there we found on Spotify.
Yeah.
I was looking to see if we updated, and somebody out there has something that they're calling their karate.
The Karate Cafe podcast or something
no,
like
they're calling
that.
it Karate Cafe .com or .com.
Right, karatecafe.com or something weird.
And it's like a YouTube channel or whatever. And stop it.
Maybe if they get really popular, we can ride on their coattails.
Maybe, and then get back to that sweet podcast money. Anyway, we want to do that. And so what I did was, the backstory was I was talking to a guy who's been training with me, and I kind of miffed him a little bit. Go figure.
Uh-oh.
And anyway, so well, that's a big long story that we're going to talk about in another episode because I have that on the list. But he threw out the well, it's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the time of war. And for a while, not just immediately after he said that, I've really disliked that. I've seen it a lot of times. I've seen people talking about it. And anyone who's listened to the show or watched it now on YouTube, click like and subscribe. That's what the kids do, right? They say
that's right. Like, subscribe, and the bell thing with the notify.
Yeah. We need to start them out. Hey guys.
Hey guys.
Anyway, the that
euphemism.
That euphemism, that we bring on ourselves by calling it a martial art.
Right.
For the overwhelming majority of us, this is not a martial art. It's a self-protection art. No matter what you do, no matter what system you do or style that you do. Refer back to 142. For me, that phrase, it's better to be a warrior in the garden rather than a gardener in time of war. First off, it brings up that whole like, oh, we're in combat and we're fighting and whatnot.
Right. It's assuming that war is always imminent.
Right. Yeah.
And so it puts you in that posture right away. There are some assumptions made in that saying.
Right.
And I think that's probably the first problem, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, and what I came back, I was actually kind of proud of myself, and I'm sure someone might shoot me down on this, is as soon as you said that, I said, oh yeah, well, gardeners won World War II.
Right.
I mean, I didn't look up any numbers on this, but I'm fair certain that, the largest portion of the military within the confines of World War II, within an active war, and World War I, really, were conscripts, or like draftees, or like volunteers.
Yeah.
And they had to be trained to be warriors. Yeah. They were gardeners in the time of war.
It makes me think of that scene from 300 where they're walking up the hill and they meet the guys from the other land and he's like, oh, you didn't bring any soldiers. That
Oh
guy's
yeah,
a farmer and that guy's a this and these guys are soldiers and blah blah blah, which gives you that. I mean, for the movie, it's very effective, right? The rah rah rah. Oh,
yeah. It
these
was.
guys are
I
soldiers.
actually was telling my son about that scene the other day.
Yeah, and so I think um it's one of those things where it's a to me a call for balance, right? Like you can obviously go too far to one side. I'll tell you a little personal story is that um I went down the rabbit hole of what do they call it? Doomsday porn kind of stuff, right? Where I started to I went
You were
down
prepping.
this. What's that?
You were prepping.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten that far yet. But especially when the COVID stuff happened, and it was actually before the COVID happened stuff. And most of you guys know I'm a Bitcoiner, and most of the guys know that Bitcoiners are anticipating the fall of the world. Um, but what happens is especially on YouTube and things like that, is that when you like a video or when you watch it to the end or whatever metrics they use to suggest their next video is more of the thing that you just watched. So if you watched a podcast about um, somebody's whose opinion is that the world is going to collapse within days, then the recommendations they give you is more people saying the same thing, and it starts to really work on your brain, as I think all social media does. And it just it's important to have an awareness of that and go, okay, wait a minute, let me walk away from that for a little while. And one of the things that I think that was pretty healthy for me is um I removed I turned off the alerts on my phone, so I wouldn't get those anymore, and I had to go actively seek if that's what I wanted. And just it I think it goes back to what we say a lot, is it's about balance, right? It's about balancing the preparedness for something bad that might happen and living your life without constant worry that something bad is going to happen. And
Yeah.
so you can go all the way. And of course, the preppers would say, uh, oh yeah, but wait and see. Right. And who knows? I mean, that might be true. They might be
Right. Well,
right.
if you want to draw out that timeline, sure. I mean,
Right.
you know.
Well, and that's the thing, is that we may be, 104 by the time it happens. So, and that's what I learned, because actually the specific podcast I was listening to, the guy kind of, and I had been listening to him for years, and he was a silver bug, right? So a guy's that's saying, oh, silver is suppressed and the fiat system and a blah, blah, blah. And it was always 6 months away. It was always every 6 months. Well, they're suppressing it again, and this is how they did it. And the problem with these guys is they have nuggets of truth sprinkled in.
Right.
So that gets you to believe in their authority of all of the other stuff that they really don't have a whole lot of evidence to back.
Right.
And it's the same thing though. It's like, okay, well, you say, okay, how do you feel about a security system for your house? Well, a lot of people have a security system, and that's not an
Right.
unreasonable expense, I guess. At the same time, if you if you don't have money to pay your mortgage because you're spending it on a security system, well, that's a problem. If prepping is your hobby instead of your habit, well, go for it then. That's cool. If you
Right.
want to garden in your
Yeah.
backyard and you want to grow your own, I mean, the motivation is irrelevant. I think the big problem is that you when those feelings of paranoia and fear start to infringe upon the joy in your life,
Yeah.
then you have to call for balance.
Well, yeah, an interesting thing I just thought about when you were talking about that was, um, one of the things in the military, right? So I mean, so here's so there's the kind of the dichotomy: you're a warrior or you're a gardener, but you can't be
Right,
both, right? You
right.
can't be both. Even
Well,
though
and
we
I'll tell
know,
you.
even though we know that like classically and like in the classical Japanese martial arts and also in Okinawa, and I'm sure everywhere else, a lot of the martial artists, a lot of the samurai and whatnot, were also, they were poets and they practiced
Right.
calligraphy and they practiced, gardening and yada yada
Right.
yada. But and then on the flip side, so like in military, like in survival school, one of the big things they teach you, and I'm not saying this because I've been there, I just and can't talk about it. Is they teach you how to find food, right? So
Right.
if you're a gardener, that'd probably be really helpful, huh?
Well, and
But you can know how to hit somebody with a stick.
well, and I guess, I hadn't even thought about this until you said that, is I would rather be a warrior in the garden. You start to think, well, you're a warrior. What the hell are you doing in the garden? Right? Warriors don't spend their time in the garden.
Right.
And so that's the balance, right? Is if you think a warrior is defined as you have to constantly train for the worst case scenario, um, then yeah, I
Yeah.
guess that's what you're going to be spending your time doing.
Right. Well, one of the things that I really, uh, and I want to take this back to actual martial art training stuff like that is, I mean, no one's saying like don't you can't be one or the other. You shouldn't, but you shouldn't. I mean,
Right.
in the military, you learn other. You have collateral duties. So you have other stuff that's not just shooting people, or whatever you do. But from a martial arts or a personal protection self-defense
Mm-hmm.
standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
having that constant mindset of like I'm getting ready to be attacked at any moment, and then
Yeah.
like then when it actually happens, if you have the warrior mindset that you've been fostering for so long, it's now's my chance. I get to
Right.
chop sake somebody, and I'm gonna rip out the rib cage and blah, 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 and show this, and
Totally.
then because I mean. There's proportionate response, and that is not necessarily a
Right.
military, especially in time of war, a what you're really gunning
Kill, kill,
for.
kill.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not really, you
Yeah.
send a message, you send warning shots, and then you level a place. But over the
Right.
years that has softened a little bit, because now there's public opinion and yada 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 it's going on. But to kind of foster that, I'm looking at this as a martial artist, much like yourself, and a martial arts instructor, is like I don't want anyone to get that sort of like I'm a warrior, because you're not,
Right.
unless you
Yeah.
are.
Unless you
you
are.
know, unless you happen to be a member of the
Well,
military
and that's
or
the
law
thing is
enforcement even.
exactly. There are some people whose profession is to do that, and then it's perfectly appropriate. But again, it's a matter of what you want, what you choose in your life to spend your time doing. And I think there are, I saw something. I can't even remember where I saw it. This guy made an Excel spreadsheet, and
Oh,
it just had the cells, and what he would do is each cell represented a week of his life,
hmm.
assuming that he lived to like 90 or something like that. And he would change the color as the weeks passed. And when he said, if you zoom out and you back away from it, it's scary to see just like that diminishing, right? And every week it diminishes a little more and a little more. And
Oh, okay.
time is one of those things. It's honestly it's the most precious thing, right? So where you spend your time is important. And if you spend your time preparing for an event that never happens, um how are you going to end up feeling about that? I'm sure there were a lot of people that built fallout shelters in their backyard, and that never happened. And now for them, maybe it gave them comfort. Maybe it gave them some sense of solace to say, okay, I have some place to go, and I'm comforted by that. And it allowed them to live in other aspects more openly. And I think that's cool and awesome and great. But again, it's a limited resource. So if your focus is going to be, I need to I need to figure out the best way to enact violence upon those that are enacting violence upon me,
Right.
unless you're in a situation where that is a good possibility, like military or police or something like that,
Well,
then
that brings an important or a good nuance that I hadn't thought about until
yeah.
just then, was that I mean, it's the premise of the maxim is you're either a warrior or a gardener, right? So I think it's probably far easier, as evidenced by all the billions of black belts that we have out there, because they're all deadly killing machines, right?
Right.
That it is far easier to make somebody a warrior than it is to make somebody a gardener, because it'll be totally, I think, totally contextual to what you're doing, right? So if you're a warrior, it is assumed that you're fighting a war, right?
Right.
So you're a gardener in the time of war. It's very easy to ramp up because you have an objective. It's war, and you're supposed to win the war. If you're a gardener, what are you doing? You're growing plants. You're growing food. Are you
Yeah.
tending your lawn? Are you doing both? Are you mixing it up? And there's a lot more subtlety and nuance, as there is in martial arts.
Yeah.
Than I think the maximum. And then again, here's the other thing: is like where do you draw the line on the maximum?
Yeah.
It's a saying, right? It's a
Yeah,
saying.
and it makes me think of for there's a saying for many things, of which I think guns and weapons are one of them. Is I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And
And I
that
can get more behind that than the other thing, than
right,
the gardener.
but here's the thing, right? That makes sense for something that's convenient. It doesn't make sense for a tank or an aircraft carrier, right? If it's a weapon, or let's just say it's a gun that you are well trained with and it's easily concealable, then that may be very true, right? Is that it in many situations it would be good to have it than not have it. And when you want it, it's because it's not inconveniencing you. It's not interfering with the rest of your life. Now, if you're deciding, well, I don't want to go to that concert because I can't bring my gun, you might want to think about that. Like, think about where your headspace is, and like how much security does that give you versus how are you properly evaluating risk, right? That's a lot of what it comes down to. And if you're not properly evaluating risk, then that's really going to affect the rest of your life, because now
you totally need to do
these
that
crutches
as a gardener, right? Because you got to watch out for bugs. You got to figure out drainage. There's all that stuff that's going on. So again, advantage gardener. Go ahead.
See, advantage gardener. Look at that. So yeah, I think that if you find that your improper evaluation of risk is interfering in those things that you can participate in joyfully, then you have to check yourself. And that doesn't mean that you have to remake your decision, or that doesn't mean that no, you're going to force yourself to go to that concert or anything like that. It just means take a step back and take a look at your thought process and really why you feel like what you're doing is such a high risk, So there you go. I kind of went on a tangent there, I think. Oh, your audio just cut out. I'm not getting any audio.
On Karate Cafe? No
Oh,
way.
there we go. I got it now. Got it back.
There you go. See, that's why I need a new mic. That's why I need that sweet
That's
podcast
right.
money to come rolling
Sweet, sweet podcast money, baby.
I may just leave that in just to make it to look cool. My audio went out on I don't know if there, for those of you who are not watching the video version, we should do something to make sure that people watch the video version, like a little special double series. And it was like, try and figure out where the audio screwed up, and I made the edit because it is seamless.
We'll figure something out for next time. I'll hold up a QR code that has Bitcoin on it or something.
That's right. We should make our own. We should make our own cryptocurrency.
Karate
Cafe coin just blew up, man. and of course, ironically, I probably won't buy any. And then
Yeah, that's called printing money, and that's not.
That's a fiat currency, and we don't.
That's right.
Or an NFT. I was thinking like maybe we could do an NFT of like the first episode of Karate Cafe or something.
Oh,
that's
a good idea.
The first episode of Karate Cafe got sold for $69 million.
We should totally do that.
And then we'll see what's going on, and then of course I had to give some money of that to Gene and Pete.
That's
probably.
True. Then it gets complicated, and it's not.
But I'll give it to them in Karate Cafe coin. It's either gonna be worth a whole bunch or nothing. I don't know.
That's right. We can give people money, worthless coins.
That's our tech evangelism section of this podcast. But I think it's a simplistic maxim right? Or
It is.
saying.
Yeah.
But there's, again, like everything else with life, there's a lot of nuance on it. And just whenever I hear
Mhm.
somebody say that, my first thing is, that's, I don't
Yeah.
trying to keep the rating, the because it's too simplistic. I
It's a
mean,
gross oversimplification is
a
what it is.
gross oversimplification. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. And
Yeah.
now I can point at you because we're in video.
I know.
Good. Yeah.
And I can feel pointed at.
You feel pointed at it. I did, instead of a hand raising thing, they need to have a point
A
pointed
point
thing.
at.
It just for and the thing that also annoyed me with this in this current situation is this guy's a younger martial artist. He's a black belt. He's been training for a while, but he's still a young man, a young person. If they identify as otherwise, a younger they. I don't know. I'm behind the times. But
Me too.
and so that's kind of one of my things is like, you've been fed this freaking line by who it is you were trained with.
Yeah.
And there's a story there, and I know he listens to the podcast, so if I've broken your heart again, I'm sorry. But
Well,
I told you, and then this is preface it for the other episode that we're going to do at some point in the future, is when anyone comes to train with me that trains anywhere else, or actually just trains with anybody in our federation, whatever, is I tell them if they're going to come train regularly, I say, I'm going to say something, at least one thing, that's really going to make you mad.
yeah.
Because it's going to challenge something that you've held dear.
Well, and
I'm
we
not
can't
looking for it.
really.
I'm not gunning for it.
Yeah.
But we, as a culture, the martial art culture, I'm saying, glom onto things, and to varying degrees, it's how tightly we hold on to it. And when someone, shakes that leaf on the tree,
Yep.
we lose it. And I'm sure
And we
I'm the
don't
same
really
way.
want to edit ourselves. You know what I mean? We don't want to have to be careful of those things. And I think both of us are pretty reasonable. Like, even when we tease about like taekwondo or whatever, or aikido or whatever we talk about and kind of make fun of, I hope that people know us well enough to know that we have a lot of perspective with that stuff, and we
Yeah, but
understand the pros and cons of all of these aspects.
yeah, I mean, there's a nuance to everything. And so, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know, which is one of the reasons why, like, I've never gotten a tattoo, because everyone,
Neither have I.
who's like, oh man, I was like, I have never held so strongly to a belief on
That's
anything,
yes.
you
Yep.
know,
That
that
is
I'm going to
my
get it
exact
etched
reasoning as
into my
well.
skin. Now,
Yep.
I was watching a show on YouTube. It was a martial arts show. Somebody were trying to get on the show, and they were talking to somebody, and they were Kyokushin, I think, a Kyokushin instructor. And they said, like, I love it so much. He said, I got it tattooed on my chest because I just love it so much. And I'm
Hey.
thinking, like, martial arts, then specifically karate, and definitely the system that I'm in, is probably the thing that I've held
Yeah.
longer than anything else. So maybe I should have gotten that tattooed on me somewhere. But I know a guy who's in our system, and he had the logo tattooed on his shoulder, and then he left the system, like, 20 years later or whatever. I mean, he was a fairly
Ah.
senior guy before he
You
did
know,
his thing.
I think of them as it is also a journal of your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So even if
yeah,
you move on from something, I, I
yeah.
I'll never
That's called
forget.
a Russian prison tattoo. That's what that is.
Right. I'll never forget. I was working with a guy at a car wash once, and I asked him about one of his tattoos, and he was like, and he was an older guy, and he said, "Oh yeah, that tattoo is when I was young and dumb." And I'm like, he is going to remember being young and dumb forever because of that tattoo.
Yeah.
So
I mean, my
it's
dad
part of
had
the
three of
journal.
them, and he was like, "Don't get one." I was drunk. I was young. I was dumb. So
Right. I don't know.
but
It's a
but I
fun
mean,
reminder.
but yeah, exactly. So I mean, none of the stuff that we do in martial art training is tattooed. Well, I mean, sometimes it
Right.
is, but
That's a good
metaphorically, it is
point.
not tattooed
Yep.
to our body. So, I mean, but I want to preface that because, like we say, is I've never, that I can recall, trained with somebody and gone like, you're freaking out to lunch, dude, and I don't want anything to do with you, and
Yeah.
I abhor everything you do. And I mean, and I've trained with some guys that, I mean, have had some interesting beliefs about martial arts in general, and self-defense and blah blah blah. Um, but I've stated my opinion, and so that's where I came when I started teaching and stuff, and I started eventually having people come in. I was like, look, I'm going to say something. This is my opinion, and it's just as valid as yours.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I guess
Yep.
on the service level, you know, if I say, Taekwondo sucks, you know, I've been knocked on my butt by a Taekwondo guy. So I mean, I
Yeah.
know Taekwondo doesn't really suck,
Right.
but uh, the other people will not believe that Taekwondo sucks. Yeah, and but whatever it is. But I mean, as far as whenever someone comes to me and wants to train with me, I'm gonna say,
Right.
this is how I see it. I haven't
Yeah.
trained in Taekwondo forever, so I don't think it's effective in this,
In these
context, if nothing
particular
else,
areas or whatever.
or
Right.
whatever, as ever.
Well,
That
and
being
I know
said, I
that.
have been knocked out
Yeah.
by
Yeah. I
Taekwondo. So
know.
I
Me
mean, it's
too.
like it's like I can't shoot, but when someone comes there and gets like bent out of shape, and I was like, dude, I told you.
Right.
And so far I've only had maybe 2 or 3 people that got upset with me. And in this case I told them, so like, look, I told you. And I mean,
Well,
they
and
haven't
I
been back to
think.
train with me, but we've still been talking, so I don't
Yeah.
know what's going on.
I think this is why it's better to have ideas than beliefs, because beliefs are generally um, not something that you back up with strong evidence or thought. And so when you have ideas, those are generated from the conviction of an idea is because it's been well considered. And when you have just a belief, it's because someone else has told you something, or it could come from anywhere, but it's generally not coming from a well thought out series of rational thought, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it. And then therefore they're more changeable, right? So if
Right.
if you and I had some other conversation with a jitsu practitioner, I don't know if that's a thing or not, that said, hey, this is the greatest martial art and I can defeat all comers and things like that, I think both of us would go, oh, really? Oh, cool. Well, let's talk about that. Let's get into the dirt. Let's figure out what's going on. Because hey, if you got
Yeah.
something, let's figure out what it is. And
and
not
and 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 and, and, and cite your sources,
right.
because have you fought everybody,
Right, right.
I mean, that's a level, of belief that we have to have, right?
Yeah.
Which, is,
Or
there
if
are
they say
techniques that
what
I've
I'm
done.
doing
Hmm?
is not right. If they
Right.
say what I'm
Oh yeah.
doing isn't right, and
Yeah.
and they can back that up, and then we can have, like, I don't have any emotional connection to the things that I'm doing.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I
whatever.
mean,
I
I
mean, you
think
do a little bit, but
I've had, yeah. Well, I've had uh, someone tell me, working out in the park or whatever,
hmm
and they're saying like, "Oh, you're not doing that kata right," and I'm like, "Depends on who you talk to."
right.
And
Well,
which I say like, "Well, it depends on who you talk
right,
to. How do you do it?" And then then there's the conversation. It's like, I'm
right,
doing it completely right, arguably, according to my system, right, and
right.
my style, and my
But
whatever.
that's the difference, is that you don't
Right.
take offense to it. You're not like immediately in argument mode of going, no, I'm right and you're wrong. It's sort of like ah, okay, you do it your way, I do it my
Right.
way. Oh, it's
If it
cool.
comes
It's
down
all
to,
good.
that won't work on the street, it's like, well,
Right.
that's debatable.
Then-
And there's,
yes.
then that's the conversation of like, well,
Now you're
what's the
missing the
entrance
point.
criteria? What's the exit criteria? What, da da da.
Yeah.
So, it's all debatable. But anyway, the going back to these maxims, which I think, so we'll dovetail after that to just say, for me, I think it's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the time of war. Is bunk. It's crap. It's poop. It's
Right.
no bueno. It's hoo hoo.
It's a false dichotomy.
It's yeah, or at best oversimplify. What'd you say?
Yeah. Gross
Over
oversimplification.
Gross oversimplification. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll edit that part out. The uh, because again, we are not warriors. When I was in the military,
Right.
we trained.
That was your job.
That was our job, right?
Yeah.
And so we when we went to sea, that was our whole thing. Like every time we push off the pier, we're at war. But I was on a submarine, and we were not always, but sometimes. But I can't tell you, forward deployed. We were out there. We were at war because once you dive, everything, it's either your boat or a target. So that's the
Wow.
mindset that we have.
Yeesh.
And as we always say, it always comes back to mindset, right?
Right.
So steely-eyed killers of the deep, and yada yada yada. And so that's the thing of
That's what you were preparing for. I mean,
but
like I
we were in
say,
the
that was your
military, right?
job.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when we were tracking, and doing stuff and doing our thing and whatever, and when we were on station in places we shouldn't have been and doing things we probably shouldn't have been doing, that was, we trained for that, and we did
Right.
that because we were actually going to do that. When you take it from a civilian standpoint and you look at it as a warrior mentality, uh, I don't think that's a good place for an individual to be in modern society.
No.
And we have an entire infrastructure in place to make a gardener into a warrior. We
Right.
have far less of an infrastructure in place to make a
So true.
warrior into a gardener, and a warrior has
So
to go
true.
find that, and
Yeah.
so I think from the context of civilian personal protection, no bueno. Uh, but what we want to hear from you, and I'm going to go ahead and speak from Dan on this, is we want to hear your favorite martial arts maxims or sayings or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And we're going to mash them. And we're either going
Yeah.
to build them up or tear them down. We're going to take them solely on their merits. If you, the listener, have uh, a reason why you want to do it, then, by all means, send us an email at karate-cafe.com or hit us on the Tweeterverse or the MyFace page and, share
The
it with us,
the the space books.
the space books, and let us know. But give us the maxim, and then we'll look at
We'll
it and
break it
consider
down.
it, and then we'll do
We'll
an
build it
episode
up.
on it on just. We've got another one that we're gonna that we got lined up. Dan wants to do it, and I respect that because it was his. He can do with it what he wants. But I post the show, so I may put a rebuttal on it. Who knows?
Yeah.
But we're not gonna do like a 60 minutes he said she said kind of thing. Um, but we want to do this, and we won't do them like every show. We'll just kind of make a list and kind of hit them when we hit them, because there's a ton of them out there,
Yeah.
and
Ton.
there's a ton of them I don't know. So Dan's a better martial artist than me, so he probably knows more.
Yeah.
Or Dan's a better martial, depending on. I should keep
You're
a
so
shot of
humble.
this or this, so that way, whichever way the screen gets put when I do
That's
the recording. Because the last time I recorded and you were over here,
Yeah.
this side of
You're
me,
you're over here for me.
but
Yeah.
on the actual video when it pooped out, you were over
Oh, it
here,
was
and so I was
other
like
way.
blah 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 blah, and I was gesturing at nothing,
Ah,
gesturing at the like a Brady's Bunch thing. Um, I do that in my class too, by the way. So for this is the video part.
right. Yeah.
So I could be doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and they don't know what they're doing. As we do the gallery view on the Zoom session, and so I'm always like, I want to do like a. They need to make the functionality. If anyone works for Zoom, I want the functionality to do the gallery view, and you can put the tiles where you want.
Oh,
So I can put
yeah. That
myself
would
like
be
in the
nice.
middle, do like a
Yeah.
Brady Bunch thing, and then it enforces that on the entire session. So that way, if I'm, on the left and I point to the left, whoever's on my left stays on my left, like always. So that way, I don't know. Anyone out there,
Yeah.
go do it. Finally, I knew
I
some
got,
software developers that can handle that.
I got a truck
Um,
out front, so you're probably
uh,
going to hear a little bit of the truck.
nope, nope,
Can't hear the truck?
no, because you get the super whammodyne mic that I don't have, that pretty much just picks you up. I didn't hear it.
Wow.
Maybe I got crap mic
It
earphones
was
now.
super loud. I'm
Was it?
shocked.
Oh,
All right.
wow.
That's great. Good
I was
deal.
probably talking, so I rolled over it. It's okay
Ah,
anyway.
ah,
So yeah, I think this is a good conversation
yeah.
and a good topic point when we don't have the interviews. Again, trying to get much more interviews. So if you have anybody, email us at karate-cafe.com or sorry, karate-cafe@gmail.com.
There we go.
Twitterverse, yada yada yada. You know where we're at Karate Cafe, anywhere. Someone's trying to get me to do a Karate Cafe Instagram page, and I can't figure out why. So if anyone could
Hmm.
respond with a good reason for why we have it,
Hmm.
why would we need it?
Because
I don't.
people want your grams instantly.
I guess so. I don't
That's
know.
the
I
only thing
mean,
I can think of.
I don't know. I've got one for the dojo, and I think I got like 3 people follow me or something like that. And I don't
Yeah.
really post that much to it anymore because it's another thing, Here at the Massive Karate Cafe studio, and getting our social media director is, pretty
I've been
over.
spending too much time on Clubhouse. That's my
Like,
that's my latest addiction.
yeah, and I didn't even know that was a thing. So that
Yeah.
that, that
Right.
shows you where I am in life,
I
right?
know.
Because I didn't know where it was at. But anyway, so Dan, great talking to you.
As always, Paul, it's great to talk to you.
All the way over there in the moon. Glad my audio is a little bit better. Thank you once again to the people who have donated. We really appreciate it. We want your feedback. I actually posted on episode 143. The only thing we got was people griping about my audio. Fix that. So Now you had to like
Any
actually give us
feedback's
some,
good feedback.
give us, yeah, really. In this case, yes. But give us a shout. Tell us your thoughts. Listen to the episode.
Comments in the videos. It's all good.
No comments in the videos. Not so far. I haven't checked the last one. I need to do that. Hey, somebody check that. Good. People at
Get the interns to do it.
the social media
Yeah.
interns. Yeah.
Yeah.
But because again, this is where the conversation starts. And as much as I love talking to Dan and hearing myself talk, I want to hear you guys too.
Yeah.
So in that case, we'll be talking to you all again very soon.